Do you like silk flowers? Well, we're not going to learn about that today. We're going to talk about crepe paper flowers. They are a beautiful, realistic solution to your flower needs. Hi, I'm Missy. I'm the creative director at Wedding Workshops and More, and today we're going to talk about the peony. The crepe paper peony is a great flower to start with because it's going to show off a lot of techniques that you can apply to the rest of your paper flower garden. I'm going to review the basic tools you need to get started with paper flower making. The first thing you need is a nice sharp pair of scissors, some wire cutters, and a glue gun. But you can also use some of these extra tools that'll help you continue your hobby and enhance your garden and make it a little simpler. The first is a needle nose pair of pliers, a damp sponge, some floral tape, a binder clip, fringe scissors, pinking shears, a brush, rotary cutter, and a ruler. I'm going to show you how to make the most of your paper when you're cutting your petals. And the first step is to really create some templates. There's a lot of things out there, so we'll leave some links in the comments on where you can find some. The first step you need to do is find your petals and make sure that you're cutting along the grain. The grain is really important when you're working with crepe paper because it'll allow you to stretch it and shape it in certain ways. So for these petals, you want to make sure that you're facing them down with the pointy side down, and set it on top of your paper to kind of measure where you want it to fall, so that you're maximizing your paper. Next, you're going to cut along the grain for this first petal and just slightly give it a little space here. Keep cutting along the edge. Now, something that could help you as you're going through this is a rotary cutter, which was an extra tool I mentioned, but you really don't have to have that. Next, you want to make sure that you're cutting this, and to maximize, I usually just start stacking the paper as I go. And continue to cut until you've reached the end. Once you've cut your general shapes along the grain, you're gonna apply your template here. Now, you don't wanna use a pencil or a marker to outline your shape. The big thing I like to do too is use a binder clip to secure a few of these pages together, just so it doesn't shift on me, and it's just a lot nicer than outlining it with a pencil and then having to figure out how to erase that later. So once you do that, you're gonna start to cut along the line of that template and continue all the way around. And depending on how your scissors go, I would suggest 2 to 4 layers at a time. It'll speed things up than just doing one petal at a time, but really it's your preference and how detailed the shape of your petal is. Continue this through the next several petals. I like to cut all of mine at once so that all my shapes are ready to go, and then I can move on to the next step. We're gonna go through shaping each of your petals and pieces of your flower next. The first element is the stamen, and it will end up looking something like this. The fringed piece you have, you're gonna take each individual fringe, and something I like to use to assist me when I'm twisting these is sometimes your fingers are just a little too slick. If you have too much lotion on them or they're just cold, and that's why I have the damp sponge. It's an alternative to licking your fingers. So I try to wet my fingers a little bit and use that as I grab each individual fringe, just to help me grab it, and start twisting it between my fingers. And once you finish that, this is actually a great time to add some color if you chose to for your stamen. And you could use acrylic paints and dip them in acrylic paints, or you could use pan pastels and brush that on. It's a great way to shade your flower and add some realistic qualities to it. Next, you're going to move on to your petal shaping. The first is the large petal. The large petal requires cupping, which will end up looking something like this, in essence a cup. Take it between your 2 hands, and with your thumbs in the center of the petal, start to slowly, in a circular fashion, round the shape, and your crepe should have plenty of give to it to create this divot in the center. And work your way out. You can always enhance this as you assemble your flower, but essentially work your way into a cup. Then you'll move on to the next petals. The small and the medium require the same shaping techniques. The medium, we're going to cup the center. So again, work your way in the middle of that petal. And then you're going to add a fluting shaping technique. Next, we're going to take the wire, and you can trim this to whatever size that you would like the height of your arrangement. You could leave it long, or I'm going to cut this one in half. Wire cutters make this a lot simpler. And then once you let that fly off screen, take your cotton ball. Now you could use a cotton ball, you could use a styrofoam ball, foil ball, whatever ball shape you'd like to select, you can add that to the top of your wire. Usually you can bend this wire. This is 16 gauge wire. Bend it to create a larger surface area, and then add some glue to that all over, and stick that inside of your cotton ball. And if anyone finds a solution to hot glue threads, tell me. Once you cup the circle piece that you had pre-trimmed, lay your cotton ball inside of that, or whatever shape that you chose, and somehow wrap this around it. Really, the goal of this is to create a paper piece that will disguise the center of your flower. Once you wrap that on top of there, you're just going to want to start twisting and stretching this paper. You can always trim it too. Sometimes I trim off parts of it just as I twist it around this wire. Once you start twisting it and you feel like you've gotten a nice, decent shape there, you can glue and secure that. So the stamen is these nice fringed pieces that you've created. You've created 2 of these. I like to do it in 2 sections just because it's easier to manage, and I like it pretty full. You could add a 3rd or a 4th, depending on the look of your final flower. With the stamen, the reason we've left this area along the bottom is so that we can glue it and roll it. So next I will apply some glue to get it started here. But start gluing it and keep going along the grain here, and adding a little bit as you go. And continue to roll it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but as you can see, I'm starting to roll it into a spiral. So when you're finished, it should look something like this. And another tip that you could do if you just feel like they're all too even is to take some pinking shears. And you could do this before you twist it and roll it, but you could add that. You could add color to this. But then once you're finished with this, you should end up with a nice spiral, and you can shape it and make sure it looks just really messy and organic. So this is when I would fluff it. Next, add some glue to the bottom of that piece that you just created, and you're going to stick it right on top of that, just like that. This is just to get some depth and height to your flower so that as you add petals, you have some surface to glue them to. Start with the small, medium to large. So the first petal is the small, and they all have this nice V shape at the bottom, and so that's where I add and apply my glue. And I like this first petal to align with the top of my stamen. So I glue it somewhere right on there so that this stamen, all of that fun messiness, is contained inside of that first petal. So as you work your way up through the size of the petals, you're going to just continue to layer them and stagger them, eventually ending with something looking along the lines of this. The final step in your paper flower peony is to add the sepals. You'll add about 5 of these leaf-looking pieces to the base of your flower after you feel great about the petals. Just apply a small portion of glue to the bottom edge, just like the petals, and you'll continue to apply them around and stagger and overlap just like the petals. The last step is wrapping your stem. And wrapping your stem, you could use floral tape. which is a little waxy. You have to kind of heat it up between your fingers. I think that's a little complicated for a beginner, and it requires you to have another material. So an alternative to that is to use some of the crepe that you used for the leaves. And as long as you cut it along the grain so that you have some stretch this way, you can use this all the way down your stem. And it's a great alternative to using the floral tape. I add a little bit to just the edge, the corner edge here, and hold it near the base of my flower and fold it over to glue it and secure it. And then the whole way down the stem, you want to hold it at about a 45-degree angle and continue to stretch it, and holding the base of your flower. And you might have some wrinkles at the start, but as you continue down the stem, you will start to even those out. And then once you get to the bottom of this with this crepe, you will cut off any extra and secure it with some more hot glue. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. We will be bringing you more wedding tips and tricks. And if you're in the St. Louis area, check out our website for upcoming workshops, or just come by and say hi.